Hello, it's your favorite sports Unc here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the fastest growing community on YouTube. Remember, Nightcap doesn't happen without you. So please subscribe or you're going to make Ocho cry. Ocho, I told you we're going to try to make this thing the real Olympics. We're going to have people that participated in the Paris Olympics, and we're going to have former greats. The guy that's going to talk with us for about 45 minutes today is a former two-time world champion in the 200 meters. He's a former four-time champion in the 400 meters. He was a former world record holder at 200 meters, at 300 meters, at 400 meters. He's still the current American record holder at 300 meters and 400 meters. And he ran the anchor leg on the world-breaking world championship 400-meter relay team of 2 minutes 54:29, Mike.
Here you go.
And he's a two-time Olympic gold medal in 400 meters. He's a one-time Olympic champ at 200 meters. He's the only man to successfully defend his 400-meter crown in back-to-back Olympics in 96 and 2000. And he's the only man currently to win the 400 and the 200 in the same Olympics. One of the greatest sprinters in the history of sprinting, arguably the greatest sprinter in American history, Michael Johnson. Mike,
what's going on, guys? Good to see you both, man. Good to see you. I haven't talked to both of you guys in a while.
I appreciate that, man. Hi, Mike, when you hear the accolades, four-time world champion 400 meters, two-time world champion 200 meters, a two-time Olympic champion 4, Olympic champion 2, back-to-back. Nobody in the history. The game's been going on since 1896, and we see some young guys come in and they win the 400 early in their career at 19, 20 years of age and can't replicate that. You did it later in your career. Why has it been so hard for men and women to repeat? I mean, it's more common in women repeating, but why has it been so hard for men to repeat the 400?
It's a difficult event, man. It's difficult for people to get consistent in that event. Like you will see somebody come out, run 43 seconds, become a 43-second 400-meter runner, but then you'll see them in some races running 44 high, 44 mid, not consistently under 43 seconds. The 400 meters is one of those races where you need to be consistent in order to deliver that type of performance when it counts at the Olympic Games. And what happens is you have somebody run the Olympics, they get it right then, and then if you see them in those races outside of the championships being very inconsistent, running 44 highs and that sort of thing, then there's a likely chance that when they get back to that next championship, they're going to run worse, not better. It's just the way that it goes. You have to try to get consistent with that event. It's a really difficult event to run because it's such a long sprint. There's a lot of room for error. There's a lot of ways to make mistakes in that race. It's hard to get it right, easy to get it wrong.
Right. When I think about the 400 race, obviously from the start, you exert so much energy. I would say from zero to 50, and then you have another phase that you kick into where it's kind of not a transition phase or where you slow down, but where you build up enough energy where you're moving as fast as you can. We're not allowing that lactic acid to build up where you're not able to finish and kick towards the end. And the first thing you said was about being consistent. How difficult is it to be consistent when the field of competitors changes consistently each time you race, and some people push you, some people don't? So how do you find that happy medium where you can always run your race but still have a chance to always win?
Yeah, it looks like when you look at track, it looks like you just going out there, and you hear most people talk about just executing their own race because you're in your own lane and the other people are in their lane. But you have to know your competitors. You have to know who they are, what they're capable of. So like if I'm in a 400-meter race, for example, and that part you talked about, Ocho, where, you come out first 60 meters or so, you want to run it hard as you can, get up to your race pace, not slow down, but just hold that pace. It's like in your car, if you push your foot all the way down on the accelerator, you're using a lot of gas.
Yeah.
But if you let it up for a little bit, now you're not slowing down. You're just maintaining that speed.
Right.
So don't keep mashing on the gas is the thing, the key down the back stretch. But in that position, when I'm going down that back stretch, if I see one of my competitors who typically doesn't get out hard, but today they're getting out hard, and now they're getting a little bit of distance too far away from me, I have to make a decision right then. Okay, do I make an adjustment in my race based on what they're doing? But I have to know them. If I know that he's not going to be able to hold that, so then I might decide I'm going to let him go. But you have to be able to make those decisions. So you have to know your competitor. You have to be able to execute your own race, but you have to be really good at making decisions in the moment, in the race, in real time. You got to make those decisions quickly because you can't just kind of think about it because the race is going to be over.
Mike, when I look at you and I go back and study your career and you look at the runners saying, I have to make split-second decisions of what I'm going to do. You look at some of the runners. You ran against Steve Lewis. You ran against Quincy Watts. You ran against Antoine Maybanks. You ran against Anton Pettigrew, Alvin and Calvin Harrison, got Washington, Danny Everett. There was such a vast range of 400 meters, and all these guys could go sub 44. And when you're racing these guys, you go into your mind and says, okay, obviously Steve Lewis is an Olympic champ. Quincy Watts was an Olympic champ. A lot of these guys you ran on the relay with. So when you're trying to break down, when you and Coach Hart, your coach, when you guys were breaking down a race, say it's a world championship, Olympic trials, the Olympics, and so forth and so on, how different, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ocho. How different is running a 400 as a 2? Because we understand 2 is half the distance of 4. But what's the difference? Because you kind of started like at a 200. You won the first world championship at 200 meters in 91, if I'm not mistaken, and then built up. And then you got the courage to say, I can do both. I can, in the Olympics, boy, do you know what kind of brass kahunas you got to have to say, I could beat the world's best at 4 and 2 in the same?
Yeah.
It's probably never going to be done again on the men's side, Mike.
So a couple of people have tried since I did it. Nobody even tried before I did it. You couldn't even, the schedule wouldn't even allow for it. So I had to get them to change the schedule. Right. But I started as a 200 meter runner. But when I was at Baylor, I was on the 4x4 and I was always splitting 43. So I knew I could run 400. But like in college, you can't really go back and forth between the 2 and the 4 very much because you're always preparing got to qualify for nationals. You got to get ready for conference, indoor. And then the same thing outdoor. And both of those seasons are pretty short. But I knew I could run the 400. Then when I started my professional career, I was primarily 200, but I was running 400s at meets on the Grand Prix circuit. And I was running low 42s, ranked number 1 in the world. But the first couple of championships, like that 91 championship, like you talked about, Shannon. So I chose the 200, made the team in the 200, won the world championship in the 200. But I'm sitting there in the stands and I'm seeing Antonio Pettigrew win the 400 meters. I'm like, I've been beating him all season. I should be the world champion in the 400, but I can't run the 400. Now somebody else is world champion. So I was telling my coach then, like, I want to run both. And coach was like, yeah, we can do both. We just got to get them to, work out the schedule for us. So over time, that became, my thing. I'm going to go to the championships. I'm going to run both the 2 and the 4. Nobody had done that before. The races are very different. The 200 meters is an all-out sprint for most people. There's, some of the guys that's 100-meter runners that's not really, don't have that type of speed endurance to be able to hold it. They can't run the whole thing. But if you come from, like me, like having a 400 background as well, I can run the whole thing. So the difference, is there's less room for margin for error in the 200. You may be able to make one adjustment in that race because it's so short, 19 seconds. Whereas in the 400, you can make all kinds of adjustments. The problem is there's more room for error in the 400. You can make a lot of mistakes, and you probably will. Whereas the 200, it's much more technical.
I think one of the most interesting things about this and everything you've accomplished, the accolades, the 4 Olympic gold medals, the 8 world championships, I think with people that are going to watch the show, like what initially, let's go back to the beginning, because we know the finished product. We know what you've done, we know what you've accomplished, but what initially drew to track and field, and how did you discover your passion for sprinting? And let's go back and take us where it all started so we get a better understanding on how everything came into fruition to where you are now.
Yeah, I just always loved running, man. I played all sports growing up in Dallas, played soccer, football, basketball, baseball. We were always outside playing, right? And I was always fast. I was always faster than everybody else. So, of course, growing up in Texas, got to play football. And so all my friends, football, and I did not like football. I love watching football, hated playing football, hated it, did not like football. Didn't like getting hit, didn't want to get hit, didn't like contact. And so they wanted me to play receiver. This was in middle school. They wanted me to play receiver. I was like, that's not happening. Nope, not happening. Now I want to get hit. And so then they want me to play running back, like same difference, you know.
You gonna get hit more.
So I ended up being free. I played safety. I played free safety. So I'm roaming, and I was like Dion. I was like, I'm going for interceptions. I'm catching interceptions, but I ain't gonna hit nobody, right? And then so I played football just because all my friends was out there. I liked it, and then I remember I had one game where great game, 2 interceptions, ran one back for a touchdown. And we lost. And I remember we on the bus going back home after the game, like everybody's sad. And I'm like, shit, why am I sad? I should, if I have a good day, I want to win. That's how I knew individual sports is the path for me. Team sports, I'm too selfish. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so high school, just track. And then I started getting scholarship offers, chose Baylor. Went to Baylor, and I didn't realize until I got to Baylor that I could even have a professional career in track.
Right.
Didn't even realize that. Right. And so that was it for me, man. And then once I got to Baylor, started running times there, it got real coaching for the first time in my life, real training. I realized that I had the potential to be world class because I was running some of the same times that the guys that was running in the Olympic Games and running professionally were running.
Mm.
Mike, when I go back and study, you're only about a year older than I am, and so I was a track and field guy too. But I noticed, but you weren't when in Texas when you talk about runners, Roy Martin was it. Roy Martin from Dallas Roosevelt.
I was running against him every weekend, Shannon. I had to run against him every weekend on the 4x4 and the 200. Crazy. He was a year older than me.
Yeah.
My sophomore year. 1984, he was the alternate in the 200 for the Olympic team in LA. Mm. We in high school.
Yep.
and I'm having to run moving like that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he ran like 20.18, right?
20.18 set the high school world record, and then also in the 100. He ran 10 something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't get out of district. So you got to finish top 2 to get out of district, to advance to regionals. Then top 2 out of regionals go to state. I didn't get out of state till my senior year because of Roy and those guys. Mm. And then my school, we didn't take sports seriously. It was an academically focused school that you had to apply to get in and everything. I got in, and sports was just like an afterthought. We were in the hardest district in the country for track. I mean, the kids in that District 10-5A in Dallas, Texas was the hardest district. And we in there it was crazy. So, yeah, I mean, and then I got out of district my first time as a senior, won regionals, got to state, got second behind Derek Florence, who broke Roy Martin's high school record in the 200.
That's so crazy.
That's what I was up against as a high schooler.
Right.
Mike, when did you realize, because I'm looking at your career, and like I said, I love track and field, and I know a lot about the 200 meters. I was at the trials in Atlanta when you broke Pietre Menina's record. He ran 1972, I think, in 72, and you ran 1966. When did you know that you could break the world record in the 200 and the 400?
So you were close. Yeah, you were close. It was 1979. He broke it in 1972 in Mexico City at altitude. And that record stood for a long time because that was 1996, right? Yeah, so 1996 when I broke it. He broke it in 1979.
79. Okay.
So yeah, I knew when I was in college. I knew when I was in college, my sophomore year of college, I ran 20.08. I ran 20.08, and I remember that race. That was the first time I really dropped the time, and I remember all of the mistakes. And me and my coach were just talking about all of the things that we could improve in that race. And he said then, he was like, you can break the world record. I was like, I know. And that's what we did. And we just kept working on it from there. But I had a lot of injuries in college that kind of helped me from reaching my potential. And I had to, overcome that. I didn't like, it was my fault. I was getting injured because I didn't like stretching, didn't like lifting weights. I just wanted to go out and practice, run every day.
Go run.
and do it. So I wasn't strong. and then I realized, and my coach had been really telling me, and I was just, hard-headed kid thinking I'm going to do it my way. Don't really like weights. I'm fast. I can just be fast. But the fundamentals are the fundamentals. It takes what it takes. There's not a lot of choices when you want to be successful. And I had to realize that. And once I did, committed myself to the weights in the strength training program, that's when I started seeing the results.
You had some battles, man. You and Butch. When Butch said broke the world record. He broke Lee Evans' world record, if I'm not mistaken.
1988.
Mike. In 1988, he ran 43:29. And so you and him had battles. You, him, Steve Lewis, Danny Everett, Quincy Watts. Guys, you guys were both going back and forth because all of you guys could sub 44 seconds. He breaks that record in 88. And you ended up breaking the record. Mike, you didn't break the record until 1999. So that was 11 years later. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, you're in your 30s. That's unheard of for a guy your age to keep PRing and pushing the record. How were you able, like you said, you had some injuries early, and maybe that what saved you is that you didn't burn your legs out early and you had some juice still in the tank late. So what was the process of going through and breaking that world record? Because you knew you were going to have the perfect race, the perfect conditions, and the perfect people in the race to push you to that world record.
So my first year as a pro, 1990, I ran 43. I was running 43.2 every time I stepped on the track. But that was my first year running the 400. I had never really run the 400.
You mean 44.2?
44.2. I had never really been running the 400. And at that point, I was really a 200-meter runner. So the first 6 years of my career, I was focused on mostly the 200 primarily, even though in 96, I ran both. In 95, I won the world championships in both. 93, I won the world championship in the 400. I would probably run my races every year. I'd probably be like 75% of my races are 200, 25% of my races are 400s. So I wasn't running a lot of 400s. Okay. So I probably would have broken that 400-meter world record a lot sooner had I been focused on that race, but I was focused on trying to break the 200-meter world record first. And so I did that. Once I did that in 96, then I shifted my focus and started running 75% of my races were 400s, 25% of my races were 200, because then once I had the world record in the 200, then I started focusing on breaking the world record in the 400. So it was like 1996, I ran 43:39, which was a 10th of a second off the world record, which was 43:29. It took me the next 3 years, and finally in 99, I got it, because it was like you just got to try to find those little areas in the race where you can make up some time.
Gained the 10th. Yeah, that was in Seville, perfect conditions. You transition. Let me ask you this: in 93, I think that was the time that you guys broke the world record at the world championship in the 400 in the 4x4. Andrew Bowman led it off. I think he ran split 44.5. He passed to Quincy Watts. I think Quincy ran sub 43.5. He passed it to Butch Reynolds. And then with nothing to prove, Mike, you got it. You guys have got this. You already got a 30-meter lead. They hand you the baton. You go. What's going through your mind? Because that was the first time in the history that somebody had subbed 43 split in the 400 meters. You stepped on the gas. I think you ran 42.9. What's going through your mind as you're going around the track and you got nothing? You got a 30-meter lead, Mike. What possessed you to do what you did?
This is a story. This is crazy. So we broke the world record the year before, 1992, right? We just broke it by a little bit. 1992 Olympics. I ran the 200. I didn't run the 400 at the trials. I make the team in the 200. There's a debate about whether or not I should be on the 4x400 meter relay. Because I'm going to tell you, go back the year before that, 1991, my first world championship in the 200. U.S. lost the 4x400 meter relay to Great Britain because they did put me on that relay.
The hurdler ran down Pettigrew.
That you exactly right. Chris Akabusi ran down Pettigrew. The team coach that year didn't like me. So he said, hey, we don't need Michael Johnson on our 4x400 meter relay. He didn't run the 400 meters at the trials. We don't need to put him on. We can win it without him. I'm ranked number 1 in the world, undefeated for 2 years, right? He does not put me on the 4x4. They lose. The next year, in 1992, I'm on the 4x4. I got food poisoning right before the Olympics. You remember this, Shannon? We talked about this, right? So
I do.
Back then, what happened? So I got food poisoning, didn't make the final in the 200. They like, we still need you on the 4x4. I'm like, man, I'm not even. I'm a shell of myself. I can't even run that fast right now. They're like, a 75% Michael Johnson is better than anybody else. So let's go. We need you on this relay. I'm like, okay. So my split in 92, when we broke the world record, I was the weak leg on that relay. I was still, I lost weight. I'm still feeling, I think I split like 44.9 or even maybe even 45 flat. It was horrible. But we still broke the world record. So fast forward to what you're talking about, 93, I had just won the 400, beat all of those guys. Now we coming together in the 4x4. Yeah, at that point, it's like I'm gonna make up for last year. And then also, if we broke the world record last year with me at 45 flat, if I can put it down like what I'm normally used to doing, we're going to put this world record to a point where ain't nobody going to break it for 30 years. And that's where we are today. Nobody has still broke that record. Because those guys ran fast, and I ran 42.9 on the anchor.
Mike, do you realize that the record that y'all originally broke was the 1968 team?
Yeah.
Matthews, Freeman, James, and Lee Evans. Do you realize outside the Americans, nobody else has ever run a time like they ran in 1968.
That 68 team,
that 256
Lee Evans, Larry James, those guys, crazy. That's also where Lee Evans broke the 400-meter world record, 43.86, I believe it was. That
43.86. Larry James was set. I think didn't they? I think they might have took.
I know they took 1-2 for sure.
Mike. Yeah, yeah. But we've been dominant in the 400 meters. If you go back from 1984 to 2008. We dominated.
And then it was sad to see.
What happened, Mike? What happened?
I don't know, man. You know, it does go in waves sometimes, but that shouldn't happen. We just had some, like this cat, Quincy Hall, right?
Quincy Hall.
We always just talk about, you look at his profile, he has a dog on there, like a face of a dog, because he's literally that, he's a dog, right? He is that when, you know, the young kids say, oh, yeah, he a dog, man. We didn't have that for a while. We did not have that for a while. I saw it and like, no, we didn't have that for a while. I mean, so right after me, it was Jeremy Warner, Taylor. You know, Jeremy was a dog. He's like, I don't care. You know, I don't care. Because he had that, if I lose, I lose. You know, if I lose, I lose. And I'll deal with that then. But the guys that come into an event, come into a race thinking about, well, what happens if I lose before the race? You already lost.
Right. You
already lost, and we had some of them. We had a few of them for a while. But I think it's coming back now. Coming back.
Yeah, it is. You know what? That transitions me right into your next question, because I was getting ready to ask you, what are your thoughts on the current state of track and field right now, and how do you see it evolving based on where we are now? Because you did just say it comes in waves, it goes in waves. Do you think we are right on the right track to kind of dominating the sport again, and maybe the 1, the 2, and obviously the 4?
Yeah, it's a good question, Ocho. So, look, the Jamaicans been taking it to us for the last 15 years. You know, I mean, you got to give them credit. I mean, this is a nation of less than 3 million people. And they go toe to toe. And sometimes, like I said, for the last 15 years, they've been handing it to a nation of 300 million people. That's crazy. Yeah. Where else does that happen? It's amazing. That's why the Jamaican brand from a sprint standpoint is so significant. They're known around the world as the sprint capital. They got great coaches. They got a lot of talent. And it used to be back when I was in college, all of the Jamaican athletes would come to the U.S. For better training and facilities.
Right.
Around 2006, 2007, they stopped. They got some great coaches down there, and they started saying, hey, just stay at home. We'll train you here. And that's when you saw that explosion.
Right.
So, you know, and it's just it's been amazing. But, you know, for us as the US, we saw what happened here in Paris, you know, Noah, Fred, you know, those guys. I mean, and it's not and look, the Jamaicans have found some new talent. Shane Thompson, Oblique Seville. those guys, they got some talent. You know, they had a little bit of a void after Bolt left, but now they got some more talent. But U.S. got some too on the men's side. On the women's side, the Jamaicans it's been ridiculous. I've never seen a situation where they had two of the greatest sprinters of all time and then found another one on top of that with Sharika and converted her from a 400 meter to a 100, 200 meter sprinter. And then now you got another one. It's been crazy. That doesn't happen all of the time. So now what we're seeing is, okay, Elaine is pretty much done. Her body's just not going to be able to, former coach even said that her body's just not going to be able to do that anymore. So she's probably on her way out and probably going to retire here soon. Shelly Ann is done. She's the greatest of all time. She's done enough. She's retiring after this year. And so this is the first time, like in this women's 200 last night, the other day, I mean, Gabby won, there was no Jamaican woman in that final. And a Jamaican woman I saw this stat the other day, a Jamaican woman has medaled in the 200 every year, every Olympic year since 1976. So it goes in stages and goes in waves. I think the U.S. is at a position where, I mean, we're always at the top of the medal table, but the events you talked about, Ocho, the sprints, a bit of an avoid for us the last few years. But I think it's coming back. It's coming back.
Yeah, we've been having to share the table. You talked about Gabby Thomas. She ran a blistering 21:82. If you go back and look at this, before the Olympics, her pre-race trial, she ran on the Diamond League, and she faced Julian Alfred, and she faced Dina Asher-Smith, and she let them get out, and she came back, and the last 20 meters, she was in third, and with 20 meters to go, she shot the first. She did not make that mistake yesterday, Mike. When she came out that bend, she was not bull-jiving with Julian Alfred. She was not bull-jiving with Dina Asher-Smith. She said, I am going to drop the hammer. I'm going to leave no doubt in your mind that this race is over. And when she stepped out of the corner, when she stepped out of that bend.
Hey, listen, when she came out that curve.
Yeah.
When she came out that curve by that 150, that 150, that 14, whatever it may be, man, that was a wrap.
She's a very unique athlete. She's got range from 100 to 400. She's world-class in all of them. She's a 10-9 100-meter runner. She's a sub-50-second 49 low 400-meter runner. She could improve on both of those. So she has that perfect combination. She's got a long stride in 200. Yeah, like Allison Felix. And and she was bronze. Gabby was bronze in 2021 at the last Olympics, and this was a redemption. And so it was great to see. It's good to see her winning. It's good to see her come back to the U.S. under 200 too.
Mike, would you like to see her, even though she hasn't run? I would like to see her on the 400. I think she should run a leg on the 400-meter relay team, kind of like Allison Felix. We know Allison and Abby Steiner.
She's run on that 4x1 before. She ran on the 4x1.
No, 4x4.
She's run on both. Yeah, she's run on both. And she's always in the relay pool for both. So last year, Budapest World Championships, I think she was on that 4x1 and 4x4. I know in Eugene 2022, she was on both relays. Yeah, so she's put herself like a Allison Felix because she runs the open races. She ran 100 meters, 400 meters. She's run open 400s and 100s against world-class competition early in the season to put her name in it. So you got like Noah is talking about, coming into these Olympics, like he wanted to be on the 4x4. It's like, no, you haven't run any 400s against nobody. Nobody's going to put you on the 4x400 if you haven't gone out there and run against people world-class in the 400.
What about Noah? I mean, everybody was talking about Kashane, and rightfully so. He jumped out there. He ran 9.77 at his trials. And the only thing that I had concerns about, I've never seen him run like this on a global stage. Running like this at your trials are one thing. And we've seen guys, Mike, and men and women, run great at their trials, run great. But when they get to that global stage, they don't perform because the heaviest thing you can carry as an individual athlete is expectations. The expectations, what he had following Usain Bolt, what he's done, the world fastest time this year. And Noah Lyles says sometimes you got to pop out and show these ninjas. And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
I think he needed to just get out with him. His reaction time was very close to Shane Thompson. And I felt if he could make him run, because nobody had made him run 100 meters. Everybody was out of the race at 80 meters, and he could drop off the gas. Noah Lyles, And Fred Curley made him run a full 100 meters, and we saw that.
No, you're exactly right. So what happened was, and Kishane is massive talent. I mean, huge talent. He is going to be a force to be reckoned with just because he's still very young. This was his first championship ever of any kind. He'd never been in a world championship or any kind of Olympic Games, none of that, never done that. So that was my only concern with him as well. I saw the 9.77. I saw his other races, and they were very impressive, very impressive. So on paper, yeah, it looked like, yeah, he should win it, or he could win it. But like you said, Shannon, you got to come in here and you got to actually do it. The issue for him, I don't think it was so much the, like the expectation or the pressure from the Jamaicans, which can be heavy, but the Jamaican athletes typically handle pressure well. Their coaches do a really good job of bringing them up as young athletes, as juniors, and helping them to understand how to navigate the pressure of a championship. The issue for Kishane was he had never been pressured at the end of the race. This race, he was, but it wasn't by Noah, because Noah was way over on the other side of the track.
He couldn't see him.
What he could see was big Fred Curley, and Fred is big like Kishane. They both big dudes, right? And that looming figure beside you, right there with you, can possibly make you tighten up.
Yeah, he was.
And he had Akani Simbini from South Africa on his other side. And Akani had been running really, really well also. So at 90 meters, 80 meters, both of those guys are right there. So for the first time in his life, he finds himself, Kishane, in an absolute race. Foot race. It's not about now. It's not about execution of your own race and all that. You find yourself in a race. So what do you do in that moment? At that point, at 80 meters, you are already running as fast as you possibly can run. The only way you can get yourself to that finish line quicker, that last 20 meters, is to focus on maintaining form, and what's going to be is going to be. That's a hard thing to do because your instinct is run faster and hunker down. As soon as you do that, your body just tightens up. It tightens up. And that's exactly what happened with him. You watch his 9.77, fluid the whole way. You watch that race the other night, last 20 meters. He's here, like a boxer, and he's not just doing this thing. And meanwhile, you got Noah over there just doing his thing. Relaxed and running through the finish line. And there you go.
Yeah.
It was kind of like Sha'Carri. If you remember in the World Championship, Sha'Carri was in lane 7. And then you had you had the Jamaicans, you had everybody bunched, and Sharika couldn't see Sha'Carri way outside in lane 7. And the next thing she looks up like, where did you come from?
And she was way over in 9. Because the thing is, what happened was she ended up getting an atrocious start in that semifinal in Budapest last year in the World Championships. Didn't get a great start, but her frequency was so, but what happened was, I'm going to tell you the truth, right? In that race, that semifinal, she didn't get a great start. And Sha'Carri at that point had not proven herself to be a real championship racer, to be able to do what Noah did. She had shown herself to be more like what we saw in Kishane, to tighten up a little bit at the end when under pressure, right? In that semifinal, she tightened up and ended up having to qualify on time. She wasn't an automatic qualifier to the final. She was the last person to get in. There was 3 semifinals. They take the top 2. She was 3rd. So she ends up having to wait for the other semifinals to finish and finds out, okay, I had one of the fastest 2 losing times, which means I get in. She gets in the final. Because she had the slow time in that semifinal and finished 3rd, she ends up way over in lane 9 and not in the heat. That benefited her because she's over there able to run her own race, not coming under any pressure.
Her race.
Wins the world championship. We all know Sha'Carri's fast. We all know she's been fast. We all know that she's got massive talent. Coming into this Olympics, running fast times against a lot of the Americans and everybody else. Get here, look, this is what happened. I'm just telling you the truth. People can love Sha'Carri, hate Sha'Carri. You can call me a hater for saying, but I'm just telling you the truth of what is happening here. What happened was, in that race, she's now under pressure. She didn't get a great start. She never gets a great start, and that's fine if you can then come through at the end. but she got one of her worst starts. One of the worst starts. Last, just left in the blocks. And now you back in the race. You got to get back in it. But now you under pressure because Julian is gone. Gone.
Yes.
Right? But that never was able to get back in it. But that race was over before it starts. If you look at Sha'Carri, and it was so surprising even to me, you look at her coming out before that race started, and she looked scared. She did not look confident. She did not look like she was like, I'm in champion, mindset. I'm about to go out here and take what's mine. And she just didn't look like that. And
Ocho,
that race was over.
Mike, Ocho and I talked about it. I said it. Mm-hmm. That's what I said. I say she didn't seem like herself. Now, what role did the warm-up, because it was being reported that the athletes that didn't ride the bus from the Olympic Village had to go into a separate entrance. She had that situation of rise. Shelly Ann Fraser-Price had that issue. So how big of a difference did the warm-up? Did she properly warm up?
From what I understand, what happened was they had been going through, they weren't staying at the Village, right? So there's some athletes that don't stay at the Village. I never stayed at the Village. So you have your own transportation. You're not riding the team bus. You have your own car driving, all of that. I would always have to go to the U.S. team and say, okay, I'm not staying in the Village. I have my own car. I have my own driver. I have my own stuff. I need a pass to get through, right? So they would give it to me, or they would say, okay, well, if we can't give you a pass, you have to meet us and then jump on the bus. But you can come from your place, come to the Village or whatever, we'll meet you and you get on and jump on. Mm-hmm. They were getting through that gate for the first couple of days, no problem. And then the next day, I guess they clamped down and said, no, this is not supposed to be happening. You can't come through this. I've heard two different stories. I've heard that they had to walk an hour, which I've only heard that from a source that wasn't really that reliable. The other source I heard said, and what I've heard more consistently is there was another gate that wasn't that far down that they did have to walk, but it was just on the other side of the warm-up area, and they had to walk down there and get in. So, and I've heard from very reliable sources that they had all of the time they needed to warm up. And that's what I've heard. So nothing official has come out yet, but that's what has been reported. So I don't think that was an issue. The Jamaican camp has reported that Shelly Ann Fraser-Price did not drop out of that semifinal because of that. She dropped out because she had been dealing with an injury and it flared back up. And she had been dealing with injuries earlier this season.
What about Shericka? Why did Shericka drop out? Has she been dealing with injuries? Because it seemed like a lot of the Jamaican women, she hadn't run really great this year. So has she been dealing with injuries?
She got injured actually in a track meet and stopped on the track about 3 weeks before the game. So it was always questionable coming into this whether she was even, it was just a matter of how serious that injury was. And so first she gets here. They were being and a lot of the Jamaican fans are sort of upset right now because the coaches and the team were being very, sort of clandestine about, well, how serious is an injury? They want to know. These are our athletes. We support them. They want to know, what's going to happen? What can, don't get us getting our hopes built up if the athlete is injured. They never really said, and then so she pulls out of the 100, out of the 200, the day before the 100. She pulled out of the 100 and said, I'm just going to run 200. I'm just going to run the 200. She never said why. And then, so we all knew why. And then the day before the 200, she pulls out of that as well.
Right. Mike, handicap this 200 meters. You got Noah Lyles, who's the American record holder. You got Kung Fu Kenny, who's run sub 19.6. You have Arian Knighton, who's run a blistering turn. You have a Tobago, the Botswanan, who's run unbelievable. Handicap this. Can we sweep the podium? Will we sweep the podium? What do you think is going to happen between Noah and Kenny Bennett?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, look, let's talk about silver and bronze, because gold is gone. I mean, Noah's a 3-time world champion. I mean, as far as the 100, he proved himself right. Noah, and that's a good thing about Noah. Noah wasn't out to prove anybody wrong. He don't care about what everybody else thinks. He was trying to prove that he's right. And that's what he did in the 100, where there was some doubts. I even had my doubts at some points. But the 200 meters, there is no doubt. Anybody saying that Noah's not going to win the 200 meters is a absolute certified hater. And they just don't want him to win. But they're still not going to get their way. Right. Nobody in their right mind doing true analytical analysis of and handicapping of this race is going to say that Noah's not going to win. He's a 3-time world champion. He hasn't lost in forever. So he's going to win it. I think behind him, there's going to be a battle with, Kenny Bednarik, Arian Knighton. Letso Tebogo, who was he bronze last year?
He broke the world record in the 300 meters earlier
and ran 44 low in the 400 meters. That kid, unbelievable.
He did.
Unbelievable. Silver medalist in the 100 meters last year, bronze, silver, and bronze in the 200 last year. So he's an unbelievable kid, but he lost his mom just 4 months ago. Did back in May. So really sad. Young kid though, great talent. He'll be in there. He was disappointed in his 100 meters where he finished, I believe, 5th. But he'll be in there. And then you got Kenny, Arian. Yeah, those guys are going to be battling for bronze and silver. And the one person that just because Andre DeGrasse from Canada, this cat always finds his way in finals. He didn't for the first time. He didn't make his way in that 100-meter final, but he always finds his way. So just for good measure, put him in there. If somebody falters, he might actually sneak up and get a medal too.
Let's handicap this. This is what everybody's talking about. The 400-meter hurdles. You got Alison Dos Santos, you got Karsten Warholm, you got Rob Benjamin, and on the women's side, it's a two-woman race. It's Femke Bol and Sydney McLaughlin. Let's take the men first. Rye's been running exceptional. Karsten, he hadn't been at the top like he normally is. Dos Santos, we know he can go sub 47. All these guys. What do you think the winning time is going to be? Are we on world record alert in the men's 400-meter hurdle?
I would never say never. I'm going to say this track is ridiculous. It's even faster than the Tokyo track. This track is really fast. Yeah,
really?
It's a new type of surf. It's Mondo, yeah, but it's fast. All the athletes have been talking about it, and they did some different stuff. Anyway, so it's possible. It's absolutely possible because those three guys are the best ever, and they are all coming right at the right time. Karsten is having a good season, but he's just not raced as much. But he trains in such a unique way that he trains to be able to run the 400-meter hurdles all out, which is just crazy. That's the way they train. Just so strong, and it's all about strength. So he's going to go from the gun and all that, and he only knows one speed and only one way to run, and that's all out. And that's why he's the world record holder.
Catch me if you can.
Rye is a sub 20-second 200-meter runner, a sub 10-second 100-meter runner, and a 44 low 400-meter runner. So he's got speed like nobody else in that race. He's got way more speed than Karsten or Allison. But he hasn't, in the years past, been able to struggle with a few injuries, and then hasn't been able to figure out how to use that speed in the hurdles to be able to stay with Karsten. But I think he has now. So it's going to be a battle. That's going to be a very interesting race. I think it could come down to the wire with all three of those guys. Dos Santos, all three of those guys aren't afraid to lose. They all go out there and put it on the line. So yeah, that's going to be a good one. On the women's side, look, man. Everybody, the thing about that is, it is a rivalry because the very definition of a rivalry is people competing against each other. They all want the same thing and only one can win. And that is this case. But it's not a back and forth rivalry. Femke's never beaten Sydney. She won the world championship last year, fair and square. And she's an amazing athlete, but she hasn't beaten Sydney wasn't there. She's never beaten Sydney. This year, Femke's having the season of her life. 400-meter indoor world record. She's run some amazing times. You saw her run that blistering leg on the 4x4, mixed 4x4 on the second day of these Olympics. And that was impressive. But you have to then look at Sydney. Sydney broke the world record again just a couple of months ago. She ran coming into the Olympic trials, even after the Olympic trials, she had the second fastest time in the world in the 200. 200 flat. So I don't see Sydney losing this unless she underperforms some kind of way, which she typically just doesn't do. I think Femke's the nearest challenger. That's why we talk about Sydney versus Femke, because she is the nearest challenger. I think it'll be Sydney, and I think that Femke, the gap may be closer this year than it's been in the past, but I think it's still going to be a gap. and then you're going to have everybody else battling for third. But look, that's why we have the races. You know, Jakob Ingebrigtsen was supposed to win the 1,500 meters, and no, that did not happen. He ended up out of the medals, and you got Cole Hawker is the Olympic champion in the 1,500.
Right. So, hey, when you mentioned the foot speed that he has, and it seems like he's changed a little bit, that he's not afraid now to drop the hammer, to go out. It's like, okay, catch me, instead of, and because he has that kind of 100-meter speed, because he has that kind of sub 200-meter speeds, and the open forward, like you said, he's faster than all these guys at all three disciplines. If you line them up in 100 meters, a 200 meters, and an open forward, Rod Benjamin will outrun both guys, Karsten Warholm and Dos Santos. Now, if you watch him now, Mike, he's running that race a little different than what he has in the past.
Because Raya's smart enough to know that you can't just use that speed any kind of way you want when you got 10 hurdles to clear. That could be a detriment to you if you use it the wrong way. And he's been trying to figure out how to use it in the right way. And I think my sense is that he's figured it out. Now, you know who his coach is? Quincy Watts. And Quincy was telling me a couple of months ago that, you know, it's a new Rye. It's like, look, this guy, he's what he's been seeing in practice indicates to him that Rye is going to be running some special times this year.
Mike, we're going to get you out on this. You established a new league, Grand Slam Track. The league is set to revolutionize the track world with, like tennis, golf schedule, 4 major championship slams each year. Slams would take place in 4 global cities, 2 domestic in the U.S., 2 international, starting in spring of 2025. 48 of the fastest racers in the world would be signed to compete in all 4 slams, and the other half will be filled by challengers looking to prove they deserve to be a racer. What was the concept behind this, and what made you decide to come up with your own track?
Yeah, you know, like what we're talking about, and the excitement that both you guys, we both talked about track before. We both talk about track all the time. I talked to both you guys over the years about track, and y'all are excited about it. And you want to see, right? You want to see track. You see it during the Olympics, you get excited. And then the Olympics are over, and it's like, I want to see some more track. You can't find it. It's out there, but it's fractured. It's not organized at scale. The athletes aren't organized at scale. The meets don't pay the athletes enough, so they don't really want to compete in those meets because it's not worth their while, right? They don't want to travel all the way to the other side of the world. And hey, if I win, you're going to pay me $10,000. These athletes, the best athletes in the world, do make good money. They just don't make the type of money they should be making because the sport doesn't have enough visibility in those times in between the Olympic Games. So that's what Grand Slam track is about. So if you think about tennis, every 4 years, you know you got your 4 Grand Slams: Wimbledon, U.S. Open, Australian Open, French Open. You know you got your 4 golf majors every year. And those are the ones that the best athletes want to be at, and they want to compete there. It's big prize money. It's best of the best. Fans get into that. They know those athletes are going to be there. That's what we're doing with track. So the best of the best athletes, the best racers. We're not doing field events. We want to focus on just the racing. We want to focus on just the fastest people, and where we can storytell around that, get people to understand who these athletes are, like UFC, like WWE, like Formula One, like golf, like tennis. These athletes are the best. So when we organize them, and next April when we start, you will be able to see the same sort of stories, the same sort of, all of this stuff we're talking about, handicapping this race. Hey, what's going to happen in that race? That doesn't happen in track and field outside of the Olympics, but starting next year when we launch Grand Slam track, it will.
Ooh, that's live.
Man, I'm excited for you. I can't wait. Hopefully we can be a part of it. Anything that we can do as far as, talking about it on Nightcap, we'd love to.
We got to get you guys to the meet. And then we will have a celebrity race too. So I need to see.
Yeah.
I know Ocho.
Mike,
Ocho be challenging
hips.
me to races, man. And like,
hey, Mike, whenever you ready, baby, 1 foot in front of the other, I'm gonna win.
I got 2 artificial hips, so both of y'all gonna run past me, so I'm good. Mike, handicap this, the 400 meters. We got Karani James. He ran the fastest time. He ran 43.78, his fastest time since 2016. Matthew Hudson Smith, who has the world's fastest time this year. You mentioned Quincy Hall. You mentioned Michael Norman. who underperformed in Tokyo, and he's put together some races. He's run 43.4, but for whatever reason on the global stage, he has been unable to put it together. So if you had to handicap this men's 400 meters, who you like?
It's tough, man, because if everybody ran their best, Michael Norman wins that race. He's faster than everybody else. Sub 10, sub 20 second 100, sub 200. But like you said, you look at his history, he underperforms more often than he reaches his potential. So, and he didn't look good in that semifinal. He left it late.
He did. He looked better in the qualifying. He looked better in the opening round.
So he just goes like blank sometimes. Quincy is also his coach, and I've talked to Quincy about it, and Quincy tries to work with him, and it's just Michael's got to be able to focus in the race. But so I would, it'd be hard for me to say that he's going to win it. He shouldn't medal. He should win it, but I'd say medal. I'd say right now I would go Matthew Hudson-Smith or Quincy Hall. Quincy Hall is a dog. And the kid just, man, and he's new to it. Technique's a little bit unorthodox, but I had unorthodox technique. You know, it's like, and he can clean it up a little bit at the end, but right now it's working. You know, just keep doing what you're doing. I wouldn't try to change his technique in the middle. So if I was going to go out on a limb, I'd say those two are going to be battling, but Karani looks good, and he got so much experience. He already has in the Olympics 400 meter finals. He's got a gold, a silver, and a bronze.
Gold.
So he's going to get another. I think he's going to get another one of them in this Olympics. So I think he's on the podium, but I think it's going to be a really good race, and that's what gets me excited. You know, when it's not like you don't want to have these races where there's one clear person like way ahead, and you know that they're going to win, and nobody's going to touch them. Like, I mean, Noah's race 200. The 200 is going to be interesting enough because it's Noah and he makes it interesting, but we already know who's going to win that race. That's not as fun as this race where it's like, if you race this race 4 or 5 times, you might get 4 or 5 different outcomes.
Right.
One last question, Mike. Could you see a scenario where Sydney wins the Olympic 400 meter hurdles, and Bobby says, okay, that's enough of that. We're going to focus on taking down that 35, 40-year-old record of Marina Coke 47.60. Could you see a situation where they focus and she goes from the 400 meter hurdles to the open 400?
I'm telling you that is the situation. that is the situation. Sydney, the only reason Sydney's running the 400 meter hurdles this year at the Olympics is because she wants to put that world record so far out there. She knows that if she leaves that world record too soft, it's not soft, it's unbelievable, but she knows that Femke could possibly come and break it, and then she'd have to come back into the event to try to get back. So her position is, I'm going to try to put it out there so far that then I can leave it and it's safe with me. Femke's not going to be able to go get it. Now I'll go over here and focus on this open 400. Because remember, last year she didn't run the World Championships. Last year she decided, I'm going to focus on the 400. That's what she did at the beginning of the season, but then decided to just shut it down for the season. So yeah, so I'm telling you, yeah, I do see that scenario. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. You know, she's the first person we signed to.
Could you see her
sign the Grand Slam track? We already signed her. She's the first person we signed.
And Josh Kerr. Could you see her going sub 50 in the hurdles?
I think that's her goal. I think that's what she wants to do. This track is fast. You know, now it's just a matter of whether or not she can go out there and put it together. But I think that in her mind, yeah, she thinks that that's where she can take this event.
Well, if she put that thing sub 40, she goes sub 50 in the 400 hurdles for the women, ain't nobody touching that anytime soon.
I agree.
Mike, appreciate that, bro. Hey, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, man. Like I said, Mike and I, we go back a long, long way. I used to see him all the time. He and my boy Ray Crockett are best friends, and so he used to be at all the game and talking. And so it's great to catch up with you, Mike. We really appreciate Nightcap. The fans are going to love this interview, man. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of the Olympics, and we'll see you in April at one of these meets.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate you, Shannon. Appreciate you, Ocho.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.